Chapter 31 Plowing the Land. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Gwail possesses the power of bad luck, a strange force surrounds her. This power is illusory, but it can quietly affect the environment around her. After she awakened, the Nova family suffered a lot of bad luck that should not have happened. Basically, all bad things happened to them, and they almost broke up. Until Gwail left, the situation of the Nova family gradually improved. In Roman's opinion, Gwail not only possesses the power of bad luck, but also the power of luck. Otherwise others would have died in the mountains long ago, whether it is disease or food. It is a major obstacle to survival. This girl was super lucky that she was not taken away by wild animals in nearly 2 years. After learning about Gwail's ability, Aaron and Green were a little surprised, but they didn't have any special opinions. This power that controls luck and bad luck is very mysterious, but mystery is not linked to strength. No matter how mysterious you are, I can kill you with one knife. The most common way to deal with witches is to sprinkle salt on them. Gwail is different, because she can't control her power. She can't even tell which bad luck is caused by her. Roman understands that Gwail's parents expelled her, not to mention the peasant family in the Middle Ages. Even a modern family can't stand it. Poor people are extremely sensitive to bad luck. Once they encounter any setbacks in life, they will complain about everything. And this is normal. Hemp ropes break at the thinnest part, and bad luck only finds the unfortunate. Poor families have very weak risk resistance and cannot withstand any wind and rain. Sometimes a bad luck will make the unlucky family even worse and enter a vicious cycle. As a superhuman, Roman has a strong resistance to bad luck. Even bad luck must follow the basic laws of physics. Gwail's influence is also limited. It is not always in the state of activation. At most, it is the extent of breaking a leg or house collapse, and it must meet the right conditions. Although there is no clear pattern, Roman always feels that this may be related to her own state. For example, the wolves came in a strange way. At that time, he and Shasta were on the verge of a fight, but they were interrupted. Roman thought it was because of Gwail, but there was no evidence. Of course, Roman did not shy away from Gwail. If his origin farm could go bankrupt because of Gwail, he would just kill himself. Roman came to the blacksmith shop. Now there were 8 or 9 people forging iron ingots in full swing. It was not that Moore was stingy with manpower, but mainly because the scale of the blacksmith shop could only accommodate these people, and it was still crowded. This made Roman feel that Lux's blacksmith shop was an eyesore. Their efficiency was very low, but they worked very hard according to Roman's order. These helpers could get 2 kilograms of wheat as a reward every day. So far, they have forged 4 heavy plows. As their proficiency deepened, their efficiency also improved. Roman watched for a moment, and the clanging sound of iron hammering came into his ears. He was a little excited. He wanted to tear off his clothes and join in, and then, forging experience +1, fiercely, but he had other things to do at the moment. Roman called Lux and said to him, "These are not enough. We must forge more heavy plows as soon as possible." Lux looked haggard. Hearing this, he remembered the silver coins promised by Roman, so he nodded and prepared to keep the fire burning all night. Roman patted his shoulder and called the manager in charge of heavy plow production here. All blacksmiths should add an extra pound of wild boar meat to their lunch and dinner every day. If pork is not enough, other meat can be used instead. The wild boar was killed by Shasta. The hunters found the wild boar's body last night and made preliminary processing, but it belonged to the Lord, so they did not dare to embezzle it, so they sent it down the mountain this morning. After giving these instructions, Roman took away all the heavy plows that had been cast and led away 6 oxen. Roman rode a tall horse in the front, looking around constantly, looking for a good place. Aaron and Green drove the oxen and pulled the ox cart. And Gwiler sat on the ox cart, staying with Chumley, and followed Roman to search aimlessly in the surrounding farmland. Green whispered to Aaron, "Do you want to make a bet with me?" Aaron nodded and said, "I bet we will have to plow the land later." Green was speechless. "You are boring." Aaron said, "Don't bet." Green rolled his eyes. After a while, not far from Siggy Town, Roman found a suitable target. The vast farmland is endless. Siggy Town is located in the southeast corner of the basin. The Silver Dragon Canyon and the dock on the Bro River are also in this direction. To the west are rolling mountains, slightly to the east is the Origin Manor, and to the north are large fields, and further north are large areas of wilderness. because it has not been cultivated yet, it is full of primitive environments such as swamps, dense forests, and streams. Roman got off his horse. Compared with other weed-covered land he had seen, this field looked a little more presentable. There were not many weeds, tree roots, and stones, and the green grass on the ground was sparser than in other places. Maybe it has been cultivated more times and left fallow more times over the years, so the land here is quite flat and can be seen at a glance. Roman used his fingers to peel away the surface soil, grabbed the deep soil, crushed it in his hands, and looked at the soil that was a little yellow and a little black. He nodded. This field was indeed very fertile. Roman put the yoke around the necks of the 2 oxen and tied the rope to the heavy plow. The heavy plow is a large plow. The disadvantage is that it takes at least 2 oxen to pull it. Everything's ready, plow. After Roman adjusted the direction, he used the heavy plow to penetrate into the deepest part of the soil. The 2 experienced plowing oxen instinctively moved their limbs and began to drag the plow. The wooden wheels turned and they moved forward. As Roman expected, the plowshares of the heavy plow are vertically sharp and can easily split the wet and heavy land, turn out the sticky and hardened soil, and cut off the grass roots. It can lift even in the face of frozen soil. This effect satisfied Roman. He walked forward for 100 or 10 meters holding the heavy plow, and then asked the cattle to stop. Roman threw the oxen and plows here, turned back alone, and said to Aaron and Green, "You two, plow 1,000 meters eastward along here, and then plow 1,300 meters straight north." Although Green predicted it, when it happened, he still pointed at himself blankly. "Huh? Me? That just do the farm work by yourself, no one dares to stop you, but I am a majestic warrior knight, and you ask me to do this. Is this appropriate? Can I afford to shame this person? What would the other knights think of me if they knew about this?" Aaron also expected that Roman would bring 3 heavy plows and 6 oxen. He thought each man was assigned a heavy plow. Roman really thought so at first, but belatedly realized that the 2 of them had no experience in farming, so he let them cooperate for the time being. Chapter 32 Rite of First Night. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Roman snorted, "If you don't finish this morning, you won't be allowed to have lunch." That when Green heard this, he immediately wilted. Man is made of iron and rice is made of steel. If you don't eat for a meal, you will be hungry. Since your job is in someone else's hands, you should just work hard. 20 years ago, the Peak Borg was at least a 4th-level extraordinary person, but he hid in the mountains and starved for 20 years. His physical fitness declined dramatically. In the end, he couldn't even beat a 1st-level extraordinary person, otherwise he would be exhausted to death, and Dick and Jet's strength probably declined after entering the mountains. Without enough food supplements, it would be extremely difficult to maintain their original strength, let alone training. Green didn't want to fall to that point. Following other lords, there are plenty of fish, meat, and white bread. Green muttered to himself and Aaron to install the yoke, and then led the oxen to the field. It's really miserable for a knight to be in such a state. If it's like this every day, how can he train and improve his strength? Aaron didn't seem to be self-conscious, and seemed very down-to-earth. He held the heavy plow. This plow was quite heavy, and because of the wooden wheel, it was difficult to turn. When plowing the land, it would naturally move forward to plow out a long straight line. The knights had a strong sense of direction, so there was no need to worry about the plow line being slanted. Gwyler looked at Roman with sparkling eyes. "Lord, what about me?" That she was no stranger to farm work, and was looking forward to what kind of work Roman would assign her. She had no idea what the Lord and his attendants were supposed to do. She just felt that the Lord was worthy of being the Lord, and the plow he used to plow the land was heavier, bigger and wider than that of Lord Moore. Roman raised his chin and ordered, "Just stay here, don't run around." He was too small, his limbs were weak, and he was the reincarnation of a bone-ribbed spirit. He could not do anything if he didn't help. He brought Gwyler out purely for fun. "Don't worry now, wait until she gets her nutrition back, and good days are still to come." Oh. Hearing this, Gwyler sat obediently on the ox cart. She looked around from time to time, just like an idle child watching her parents working in the fields. Hum, hum, hum. Roman hummed a little tune, holding the heavy plow and driving the ox. He plowed the land slowly, and, planting experience +1, popped up in his mind from time to time. Roman's task today was very simple, which was to plan a specific range for the land for spring plowing this year. The effect was like the white lines on the playground, but for this short distance of 1,300 meters. Roman took more than an hour to walk. Roman wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked back. A straight deep furrow appeared in front of him, and the black soil more than 10 centimeters deep was completely turned out. The previous light plowing could not achieve this level at all, because the shallow fertility was limited, so the harvest was hard to describe, and this time, the deep plowing turned out the deep soil together. The vertical plowshare went deep into the ground, driven by the oxen, and opened a path for the plowshare, which turned up a large piece of soil behind the plow blade. The plow board was a kind of oblique flap installed behind the plowshare. The soil turned up by the plowshare would be tilted and piled to the right side of the plow, thus forming a furrow and furrow ridge between the fields. It was just like drawing a line on the beach with a stick, and the sand would automatically pile up on both sides. Looking at this row of neat furrows and furrows, Roman was very happy. He lifted the heavy plow, drove the oxen to turn a corner, and continued to plow the land forward for 1,000 meters, forming a right angle. Green and Aaron were waiting at the end. The two of them took turns holding the heavy plow, and their efficiency was faster than Roman. Aaron also picked up all the hard mud, stones, tree roots, dead grass, etc. turned up by the heavy plow and threw them all on the land next to him. Looking down from the sky, Roman can be seen holding the heavy plow, and under the drag of two oxen, he drew a straight plowing line and slowly blocked the rectangular gap. Roman joined the two and put the plow up. This vertical hard pure iron plow can adjust the depth of plowing. Finally, the three of them were basically sweating when they returned to the field. Seeing the expectant expression of Guile sitting on the ox cart, Roman knew that she was hungry. Roman snapped his fingers and said, "Go eat, go eat." After these days of work, the farmers also knew that it was time for lunch. This is a free lunch, and the quality of the food is excellent. They returned to the town of Stur. Roman's food was also prepared. Although he ate the same food as the farmers, his side was obviously exquisite. Whether it was oatmeal porridge or black bread, it looked very clean, so Roman acquiesced to Moore's little action. The physique of the extraordinary people is not afraid of the problem of dirtiness, but it is better to be a little cleaner. After he finished eating, the deacon Seth stopped him. "I think you need to look at the financial situation of Sage Town." Seth handed Roman a stack of thick parchment. Roman took it and looked at it for a moment. The power of the nobles in this world is unimaginable. They only need to be responsible to the superior nobles or the king. In addition, they have most of the rights of their own territories, even the right of first night. Roman knew that some nobles would really exercise these rights. For ordinary people, tenants who can rent land can be called free people, and those without land are basically slaves, but this is limited to the fiefs of small nobles. The fiefs of large nobles can be divided into more classes. The financial situation of Sig Town is very strange. It is a messy account, and has no reference and statistical value. It is normal. This place used to be a one-man show for Moore. He wrote down what he did when he thought of it, and didn't write it down when he didn't want to. The tax collector of the Grand Dukedom has a fixed tax share every year, and has never checked the details of Sig Town. Moore has been here for so long that he doesn't even know the population of Sig Town. Maybe he did it deliberately. He only knows not to let the peasants starve to death, to give birth to more children, to plant more land, to harvest more food, and to exchange food for more money. When necessary, he will even lend them food in difficult times to help them get through the crisis. This can't be said to be wrong, but as a lord, you can't play like this. The appearance of Roman changed everything. All accounts must be recalculated, and all expenses and incomes must be listed in detail, so as to facilitate long-term rule. Roman even saw in the financial records of the town of Stur that at some point, 100 kilograms of rye were lent to the Nova family. 150 kilograms had been repaid after the autumn harvest, and 100 kilograms would be repaid next year. Usury has come out. Roman called Moore over, and when Moore was sweating, he took the feather pen from Seth's hand and crossed out all the thick parchment. That action was quite like Sun Wukong rewriting the book of life and death. Roman said, "Write off the previous accounts. Understand that he recovered all the land. How could the farmers who owed him money pay back the grain?" Of course, Roman also knew that even if he strongly demanded the concentration of labor, most farmers would definitely grow some grains and cereals in secret. Not allowing those wastelands to be cultivated during the day does not mean that they really don't farm, but as long as it didn't interfere with daytime work, Roman would turn a blind eye. Anyway, the farmers had to hand over 50% of the land output to him during the harvest, and the crops in the fields couldn't be hidden at all. Chapter 33 Salary. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Moyer nodded like pounding garlic, constantly wiping his sweat with a handkerchief, and had expected this matter. I thought Roman would be furious when he saw these messy account books. Roman turned to Seth and said, Seth, you will manage the finances of Siggy Town in the future. Seth sighed, Master, this is the problem I want to talk to you about. I'm afraid we will go bankrupt this winter. Seth did some calculations for Roman. The guards are the armed forces of Siggy Town. They have no salary, but they will receive subsidies in kind, 50 kilograms of wheat and 140 kilograms of grains per year. Compared to the tax rate of half of other farmers, this makes guards a pretty good profession, and you can't become one without some connections and conditions, and the stewards are even more exaggerated. They have a basic salary of 5 silver coins per year, and an additional 120 kilograms of wheat, 50 kilograms of grains, and 30 kilograms of meat, with a complete tax rate. Only these stewards can afford slaves. The reason for calculating the tax exemption rate is that the guards and stewards also have land at home. Some have more than 100 acres, and some have hundreds of acres. Roman didn't know the details. Anyway, he had recovered all the land and labor, so there was no need to care about these trivial matters. In other words, the annual fiscal expenditure of Siggy Town is nearly thousands of kilograms of wheat, and grains and meat are not included. The total salary is as high as 8 gold coins. The problem now is that Siggy Town can't pay this year's salary in winter. The reason is that before Roman came, Siggy Town's financial situation was healthy, but then Roman made drastic changes to Siggy Town and directly overturned the original production model. Seth was extremely opposed to this. Siggy Town's grain could have been sold, but this year it would be a win if no one starved to death. It is still unknown how much the 2,000 acres of land Roman marked out this morning will produce in the summer. Siggy Town's main output is grain, and low output means no income. In the foreseeable future, he successfully plunged the originally well-fed town of Stur into a state of severe famine. After all, the farmers' food reserves can only sustain them until the summer, and they can still eat wild vegetables and pick berries in the autumn, but people will definitely starve to death in the winter. What's more terrible is the expenditure of 8 gold coins. More than 1,700 kilograms of wheat are worth 1 gold coin. In other words, 8 gold coins are equivalent to more than 14,000 kilograms of wheat. If the grain cannot be sold, then Stur Town will not be able to afford these financial expenditures. Seth did not even include Green, Aaron and his own wages. Otherwise this expenditure would triple or even double, and the employment fees of Stur Town's craftsmen are not a small number. Such as Lux and Vicky. After Seth's calculation, Roman's original heart was immediately put down. So that's it. Seth's attitude was very serious, and he bowed slightly and said, I hope you can think carefully. His subtext was that you should stop messing around, and let the farmers go to farm. It doesn't matter if you delay the spring plowing for 2 or 3 days. If you continue, there will be no hope this year. Don't worry. Roman waved his hand. Seth reminded him, his first thought when he heard about bankruptcy was to fight against the local tyrants, that is, to plunder more, but he felt it was unnecessary. This fat pig was raised in the backyard, and all the meat was his, and Moore's response of asking for whatever he wanted also satisfied Roman, so he didn't plan to change the agricultural officer. Roman turned to Moore and asked, why are the salaries and benefits of the stewards so high? That there are 16 stewards in Siggy Town, each with different responsibilities. Some are responsible for secretary, some are responsible for oxen, some are responsible for animal husbandry, some are responsible for farm tools. Their main responsibility is to cooperate with the agricultural officer Moore to carry out land production. It is impossible to eat empty salary. There is no need for Siggy Town to do so. There is a high probability of using the position to enrich oneself, but it will not be too extreme. Moore's face, which had been wiped clean, began to sweat again. He hesitated and couldn't say anything. Roman saw the clue and squinted his eyes. Your relatives. Your brothers and sisters. Moore sweated profusely. Roman was not afraid that Moore would sideline him. His orders were well executed in Siggy Town. if there was really a bad intention, Roman didn't mind letting Siggy Town re-recognize the power of the fighting knights. He firmly believed that as long as enough were killed, all human problems could be solved. Roman smiled and said, I know the general situation. Let's cut the salary and benefits of all the managers. Change it to 1 silver coin per year, 100 kilograms of wheat, 300 kilograms of grains, no meat, and the tax exemption rate will remain completely free for the time being. You have no objection, right? Maul thought to himself, I have no objection. Anyway, it didn't affect me, but my uncles and brothers and sisters will probably be boiling with anger, he said hesitantly. Master Roman, you are. Roman raised his chin and snorted, if anyone has any objections, let him come to me. Follow your orders, Master Roman. Having said this, Moore also understood Roman's attitude. It is impossible to talk to the Lord about this, so he can only obey. The base family is just an inconspicuous vine attached to the big tree of the split armor family. Just because the big tree is lush and leafy, and the shadow is deep, in the dark corners that no one knows, this vine secretly absorbs a lot of nutrients, so that it grows branches. Moore wiped the sweat off his face. He used to be a local emperor at best. In this land where the sky is high and the emperor is far away, the influence of the Black Iron King is almost non-existent. Now the lord who controls the armed forces is the strongest, and his power is like a real emperor. Resistance is definitely impossible. Without the base family, Roman is still a noble lord, and without the lord, the base family is just a civilian. They know very well who their rights come from. Next, everyone can only scramble to please this lord. Although the treatment has been cut, those collateral branches can still maintain a fairly high quality of life with their past savings, but they can't go back to the life of eating meat frequently before, which is also unavoidable. Roman thought for a moment, and then said, How are the guards who died in the battle yesterday now? Moyer said respectfully, according to your order, the families of the dead were given 5 silver coins, 40 kilograms of meat, and 80 kilograms of wheat. The families of the seriously injured were given 2 silver coins, 15 kilograms of meat, and 40 kilograms of wheat. Even those who were slightly injured were given 10 to 50 kilograms of wheat. Your reputation for kindness and generosity spread throughout the town of Stur. Those silver coins were paid by Roman, and were personally delivered to the door by Aaron and Green, 2 knights who fought in the war. This compensation was so generous that the seriously injured guards were a little envious of the dead. Call all the guards who can move. Roman raised his head and thought for a moment. He was originally going to improve their military literacy, but the problem was that he couldn't spare them. They are called guards, but they can also be called police officers in normal times, which is to maintain order and supervise others' work. It's okay in the short term, but if there is no supervision for a long time, the efficiency of these idiots will definitely drop significantly. Chapter 34 Who is the Farmer? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Don't overestimate the consciousness of those idiots. Even a free lunch every day can't awaken their enthusiasm. The big stick is necessary. Roman changed his words and said, Aaron, you train all the guards for 3 hours every day. Aaron frowned slightly. He had never been an instructor and didn't know whether he should use the standards of a knight to train the guards. He also saw the situation on the mountain yesterday. These guards are undisciplined and have no form. If they are not trained, it is difficult for them to play their due role. Okay. Aaron agreed immediately. If you don't know how to train, ask Roman. Green didn't envy anything, and his personality was not suitable for being an instructor. In addition, tell them that the guards will get 2 copper coins, 10 kilograms of wheat, 10 kilograms of grains, and 2 kilograms of meat every month in the future. Pay them wages? Moore was a little confused at first. Even if they were paid, it would be too little to support them, but he suddenly widened his eyes. Every month? That treatment is too outrageous. Guards are conscripts. Unless they are fighting, they don't get paid. Giving them some compensation in kind is already a kindness. Roman tilted his head slightly. Yes, it will be paid every month, but I have standards for them. If they don't meet the standards I set, then I will kick him out of the guard team. If there are guards with good performance, I will also reward them extra. By the way, include the hunters in the guard team. I appoint Dota as the captain of all guards. You ask him to go down the mountain as soon as possible. After explaining these things clearly, Moore's handkerchief was wet. He immediately notified everyone what Roman had just said. Seth looked at Roman and said, "You still haven't solved the problem of bankruptcy in winter." The salary of the steward was cut, and the salary of the guards was increased. In fact, the total expenditure did not decrease much, because the management brought by Roman is the bulk of the financial expenditure. Aaron and Green's annual salary are calculated in gold coins. Roman said confidently, "I know about this. I will solve this problem before the end of spring." Seth saw that Roman always had this attitude, and he was hesitant to speak. He didn't know where Roman got his confidence from. He watched Roman grow up. Even though the latter's operation was too amazing in the current era, he couldn't help but have a little expectation of Roman in his heart. "I hope so. And, you shouldn't always make yourself so embarrassed. There is mud on your legs and pants, your collar is messy, and the buttons of your shirt should be buttoned. You are too inelegant and too outrageous." Roman was speechless watching Seth touching him. He adjusted his collar, buttoned his clothes, and patted the dirt. He thought it was unnecessary, but Seth obviously didn't think so. He made Roman very neat and clean, which made Roman always feel that Seth had some kind of obsessive-compulsive disorder and had to do everything in an orderly manner. After the rigid deacon left, Roman went to the blacksmith shop again and brought out a heavy plow that they had just forged this morning. Then Roman found 50 farmers with rich farming experience and a steward, and took them to the land he had marked out this morning. At the edge of the field, Roman first demonstrated to everyone how to use the heavy plow and its effect. The operation of the plow is very simple and you can learn it at a glance. Roman plowed a short distance. As a lord, his majesty is extremely high. He demonstrated it in person. Not to mention the effect of plowing the land, this attitude alone shocked the farmers, and they found that Roman's action of holding the plow was quite skillful. Who is the farmer after all? What is even more shocking is the effect of plowing. Oh! The Lord's plow is so wide and big that you don't even need to step on it. It's coming out, the stone is coming out. Tree roots as thick as arms are coming out. The mud is also lifted up, it's black soil, that the farmer exclaimed in a low voice. His eyes were extremely eager and excited. No one knows the role of cultivated land better than them. This is one of the very few effective means of increasing grain production in this era. If seeds are sprinkled on uncultivated land, it is lucky to guarantee a basic harvest of 1 planting and 2 harvests. More often, there is no harvest, so they rely heavily on iron farm tools for farming. The light plow has a very limited depth and width. Farmers using light plows have to step on it to achieve the desired effect of plowing. Even so, they can only achieve shallow plowing, which is not suitable for the soil structure of this land. Of course, it is useless to tell these planting knowledge to farmers with shallow knowledge. They only care about the explosive farming effect. They had never been educated, nor had they been brainwashed by the church. They didn't know that the church had a doctrine that prohibited change. Even if they knew, they would not abide by it. The gods were just a prayer object for them when they were poor. What doctrine? What doctrine? Can it make more food grow in the land? Because of the Lord's tough orders, they had to do things that had nothing to do with farming. In the past 2 or 3 days, although they could have a free and sumptuous lunch at noon, the price was a waste of time and energy. They didn't know what picking up manure meant, nor did they know what Roman was going to do. They only knew that the work in the field would be delayed, and the plowing time would be delayed for 2 or 3 days. Most farmers were getting increasingly anxious. If they didn't plant the land, it meant that they would most likely get nothing this year and their families would starve to death. They showed enough docility, but the Lord still had no intention of giving them land, so they had to secretly plant something at night. If Roman delayed for another 2 days and still didn't let them plant the land, the accumulated emotions of these farmers would most likely burst out, causing large-scale unrest. And today, seeing Roman plowing the land with a new plow, the anxiety of these people suddenly eased. In any case, this is a good development. The Lord also knew that they would have to plow the land next, and he would not stop them again. The appearance of the new plow also gave them some confidence in their future farming plans. The land plowed with this plow would definitely yield a lot of grain. Although it took a lot of time, they could still plant some grain in a hurry if they raced against time. so as not to end up with nothing. Roman called them over and said to them, "Your next task is to deeply plow all the land I have fenced off." Currently, only 4 heavy plows have been produced, which is obviously not enough for 50 farmers. Theoretically, 8 or 10 people are enough. However, they not only have to plow the land, but also pick up stones, tree roots, weeds, etc. that are turned up from the ground, which requires manpower. Don't underestimate this workload. When Roman was plowing the land in the morning, he even encountered a tree stump buried underground. He took a lot of effort to pull the stump out of the ground, and the broken tree roots were still buried underground. Chapter 35 Power and Strength. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Roman thought that there should have been a forest on this land in the past, but it was cut down during the reclamation process. Because of the lack of suitable tools, the tree stumps buried in the ground have not been cleared out. There is no need to clear them out. There is plenty of land, so there is no need to fight with those deep-rooted big tree stumps. There may still be dozens or hundreds of these tree stumps. Roman will not tolerate any debris appearing in the soil and affecting his harvest. Theoretically, the total labor force of Siggy Town is about 1,100 to 200 people. The actual situation is that Roman has only more than 700 people available at most, because other laborers have to maintain the basic operation of Siggy Town. Composting is a very important thing. Now most of the laborers are collecting manure. According to Roman's estimation, this work will basically be completed in 3 days. By then, the new heavy plow will be cast, and the laborers who have been freed from the work of collecting manure will turn the 2,000 acres of land upside down. Do you understand? Yes, sir. The farmers responded in unison, and many of them stared at the heavy plow, obviously very curious about this new plow. Roman waved his hand and let them go to work. Compared with the light plow, the heavy plow is heavier, moves slower, and requires 2 oxen to pull, but the heavy plow can plow half a meter of land width at a time, and it only needs to plow once. 2 oxen can plow 6 acres of land every day. The premise is that they can't turn around frequently, otherwise it will take a lot of time, so Roman also chose such a flat and wide land for collective labor. After all the heavy plows are cast, it will take 10 days to harrow the 2,000 acres of land, but the blacksmith shop has low production efficiency. Roman asked Lux, and he will have to wait 7 days at the earliest to manufacture the 40th heavy plow. Therefore, after casting a heavy plow, it must be put into use in time. Roman wants to sort out this piece of land as much as possible in the next 13 days. By then, the manure has basically fermented. Deep plowing is just the foundation. The following: sowing and fertilizing are also very important. This is also a race against time with God to avoid missing the most suitable time for farming in spring. The principle of intensive farming is not to fool the land, otherwise the land will fool you, but after planting, it can save a lot of labor. In the following spring and summer, at least 4/5 of the labor can be freed from heavy field work. This is Roman's purpose. These people have been bound to this vast land for generations. They carry an invisible mountain on their backs, which makes them unable to look up all day long, and do heavy work every day that can never be completed. Day after day, year after year, after hundreds of generations of withering and flourishing, the seeds sown on this land sprout again and again, but they have never broken through the invisible shackles. It's like a terrible curse shrouding this barbaric and dark era. Until now, Roman had not told them that this year's spring plowing, Siggy Town only planted these 2,000 acres of land. When the farmers learned about this, they might start a riot, because from their point of view, Roman wanted to starve them to death, and the harvest of 2,000 acres of land was not enough for them to eat. In this era where food is more important than anything else, farmers generally treat farming with a very conservative and cautious attitude. This is purely an instinct for survival. After all, if there is a slight mistake in agricultural production, there will be big problems. This matter cannot be concealed, and the farmers will soon notice this. But it doesn't matter, he will suppress the unrest, even if 100 farmers die, in exchange for Siggy Town's continued development step by step. In Roman's view, this is a very cost-effective thing. He is determined to implement his will. Roman has high requirements for this group of laborers, because there will be more things for them to do in the future. The interface of Story of Life is a large grid-shaped map, and Roman's origin manor is located in a corner of Siggy Town. Only the maps he had explored were lit up, and the maps he had not explored were dim. Roman was still not clear about all the resource points in his territory. When Roman was in the mountains, he surveyed resource areas such as iron ore and stone ore. However, it was impossible to mine in the deep mountains. Roman wanted to find more suitable, and richer resource points, and this required a lot of manpower and material resources. He would not let these people be bound to this land. This was an intolerable waste for him. It was just that surveying resources was a long process. Roman would need at least half a year or a year to walk through every corner of this basin. Now he had no time to click on the map, so he could only put it aside for the time being, eat one bite at a time. Roman planned to upgrade his life skills first. For example, the skill, collection. The way to upgrade this skill is very simple, just keep cutting trees, quarrying, and mining. There is a large area of mixed woods to the north of the origin manor, which can extend to the foot of the mountain. Roman was annoyed by the forest when he was cultivating land and planting vegetables in origin manor. Cut it down. Do it as soon as you say it. Roman immediately handed over the task of cultivating the land to Moore. Anyway, the area that needed deep cultivation had been marked out, so there was no need to stay there any longer. Roman first looked at the group of children. Hans and Gemmen were temporarily serving as teachers in the manor. Because there were so many students, the classroom was open air. Then, he started teaching from letters and numbers. These children had a very poor foundation. Fortunately, Roman did not have much hope for them. They only needed to receive literacy education. He took out a sharp axe from the grocery room, held it in his hand, and then walked alone to the forest north of the manor. After having lunch in Seg Town at noon, Gwyler was taken back to the origin manor by Aaron and Green. After seeing Roman, she followed him. "What are you doing with me?" Roman turned his head and asked. Gwyler stood there and said in a panic, "Didn't you say I was a close attendant?" That Roman was originally going to send Gwyler to receive education with the group of children, but then he thought that Gwyler was special and Hans and Gemmen might not be able to accept it. If something unexpected happened, it would be troublesome, so he said, "Then come here." Gavel smiled and ran towards Roman on tiptoe. She was a disaster star, but she was not afraid of bringing bad luck to Roman. The lower-class residents of this era developed a sense of obedience to the aristocracy under the natural influence of the environment. If the identity of a witch is full of unknowns and terror, then the identity of an aristocrat represents power and strength. This made Gavel, who was dependent on power, feel a strong sense of security. Chapter 36 Cutting Down Trees. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Roman had previously cultivated 10 acres of vegetable land on the north side of the manor. This is normal. Nobles usually open up a piece of self-cultivated land next to the castle and manor. The main purpose is to provide food and drink for the people in the manor. Continuing 100 meters north, we arrived at the edge of the forest. He first took a look and found that this mixed forest was mainly composed of pine trees, and the rest were elms, ash trees, etc. They were basically tall trees, tall and strong. Moreover, the forest not only contains trees, but also shrubs and weeds, which are extremely dense and spread out from the forest, making it difficult for humans to pass through. Roman slashed around with an axe in hand. He first spent half an hour clearing out the dry shrubs and weeds at the edge of the forest. It is worth mentioning that clearing bushes can also trigger the collection experience +1 prompt, where also helped pile up all the shrubs and weeds that Roman had cut. This area that originally seemed densely covered with vegetation suddenly became spacious. The leaves of pine trees are needles. They grow over time, and a thick layer of leaf litter accumulates on the ground. Roman took a look and saw that the dry pine needles on the ground were basically in a semi-rotted state and could be crushed with just a pinch of hands. He then advanced more than 10 meters into the forest, then peeled off pine needles and examined the soil below. He found that it was all decomposed pine needle soil. The pine needles matured and formed natural nutrient soil, which was accumulated to a thickness of about 10 centimeters. This thing itself can be used as fertilizer. For farming, it is definitely not enough. It is a drop in the bucket, and it is very difficult to collect, but it was more than enough for the 10 acres of vegetable land he had just cultivated, and the distance was very close, so there was no need to worry about transportation problems. Just spreading a layer on the vegetable field can effectively increase the yield of vegetables. This discovery made Roman very happy. With this kind of natural decomposed soil, he didn't have to pull fertilizer from Siggy Town. Roman returned to the edge of the forest and found his first target. a red pine about 15 meters high and 70 or 80 centimeters in diameter. He looked up for a moment, then held the axe and found a suitable position. He first used the axe blade to gently scrape off the bark of the pine tree, revealing a large piece of white wood. Then, Roman raised the axe and slashed downwards diagonally. Without much effort, he was able to cut into a depth of 4 to 5 centimeters with the help of weight and speed. Shake the axe handle and pull out the axe head. Cutting down trees is a skillful job. He planned to chop down trees all afternoon. He couldn't hold on for long with brute force alone. He would save as much energy as possible. Roman slashed diagonally 4 or 5 times, and then started to chop sideways. He quickly made a gap, and then continued to chop diagonally to expand the scope of the gap. The force he used each time was not great, but the victory was lasting. The powerful sound of logging continued to sound here. In 10 minutes, Roman cut out a standard V-shaped notch with a depth of 30 centimeters. Then, Roman made another opening at the back of the red pine, forming a trap between 2 sides, but this was still not enough. Roman made another opening on the side. He wielded the axe, bent down, and chopped down the red pine dozens of times. During this period, sawdust kept flying out, and large pieces of wood could collapse 2 or 3 meters away. Feeling that it was almost done, Roman turned around and said, "Guile, stay away." Guile was in a trance as she watched Roman cutting down trees. She felt that Roman's movements were simple but very attractive. When she heard this, she immediately turned around and ran far away. Roman held the axe and started to chop hard. After about 4 or 5 times, it was effective. Click. Finally, the red pine fell. He staggered and fell towards Roman. This left him speechless. He felt that letting Guier leave was unnecessary. The tree would not hit the lucky man at all. Roman deliberately cut the gap towards him to a higher position. He should have fallen towards the gap with a lower height, but the result was the other way around. If it were a malnourished and unresponsive farmer, he might be frightened by such unexpected changes and suffer disaster, but Roman took a simple step and dodged. Boom. Chisong crashed to the ground, which inevitably made Roman feel proud in his heart. Roman looked at the game prompt again and found that this red pine tree provided him with 2 points of collection, experience points. It took him about an hour, which was quite efficient. Roman didn't rush to cut down the second tree, but cleared the branches of the fallen pine tree and turned it into a round log. Roman and Guier picked up the pine branches and threw them together with the pile of dry shrubs. At this time, Aaron came up. He asked, "Roman, how will I train the guards tomorrow?" After hearing this, Roman thought for a moment, and then said with hand gestures, "Your position is that of an instructor. Let's start with the basics and teach them how to stand at attention, line up, turn around, count, and walk in unison. I need an army with orders and prohibitions. Not a loose team of militia like guards." Aaron nodded, "Okay." Roman continued, "I have improved their treatment now, and there will be no shortage of food or meat. Therefore, you can impose strict requirements on them. After the spring passes, I will allocate a considerable number of people from the farmers. Join you. Your current mission is very important. If necessary, you can let Green assist you." Aaron knew what Roman meant. His current guards would become the backbone of the future army of Stur town, that is, reserve officers. He left quickly, and was not unfamiliar with the basic training that Roman mentioned. When Roman was young, he told him and Green that he would build an invincible army in the future, but there was no room for him to display his talents in the Grand Dukedom. Roman turned around and continued to chop trees. He knew that Aaron would not let him down. "Master Roman, this is for you." Guile raised her hand high and said. Roman took a look and found that these things were hazelnuts. They should have fallen last year. They were of good quality and had not been affected by moisture, mildew, and insect pests. I don't know where they were hidden in the corner, and Guile found them out. This unlucky child must have found a squirrel's food storage hole. "Let me try it." Roman cracked the nut shell with an axe and threw the fruit into his mouth. He found that it tasted very good, crispy and delicious. Roman ate several of them in a row, and then asked Guile, "Do you want to eat?" Guile tugged at the corner of her clothes, lowered her head and whispered, "I've eaten a lot before." Roman said oh and didn't ask any more questions. There are many resources in the mountains, but he estimated that Gwyle's daily food mainly comes from wild fruits, mushrooms, nuts, etc. that are easy to pick. This thing should be something she brought to him on purpose, so Roman didn't hesitate and ate it all in one go. Gwyle smiled with joy. Chapter 37 Turmoil. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On this day, Roman cut down 5 trees. This adds 10 points of gathering experience to him, due to the long-term exertion of both arms. When the 5th pine tree fell, Roman only felt that his arms were extremely sore. Although he could still hold on, he felt that there was no need to force it. In addition, it was getting late, so Roman took Gwyle back to the Origin Manor. Chef Bob prepared dinner: buttered bread, char-grilled lamb chops, fried ham slices, radish and vegetable soup, and a large jug of milk. After Roman sat down, he poured a glass of hot milk for himself and Gwyle. Seth suddenly said, "Master, some farmers came to me today and I hope you will allocate land to them as soon as possible. Even if the tax is higher, they can accept it if the tax is 50% and 60%. Roman picked up a fragrant mutton chop and bit into the mutton slowly. "Why should I give them land?" he said. Seth responded, "Those farmers say you broke your rent covenant." Roman did not deny it. "Well, so what if I violate it? He can go to the Black Iron King to punish me. He now unites all the resources in Siggy Town. If the land is divided, it means that the labor is also dispersed. All those farmers went to cultivate the land assigned to them according to the old traditional methods, that was calculated as a unit of 10,000 acres. Everyone in Siggy Town couldn't even find a shadow if they sprinkled it on it. Who will cultivate his land?" Seth felt that this was inappropriate. He was Roman's retainer and knew that Roman was not a person who wasted his life. Roman, as the best among the illegitimate sons of the Grand Duke, came to Siggy Town with all his efforts, not to destroy it, but to build it. After all, he is the lord here. There are always huge hidden dangers in this matter. He felt that Roman should follow a step-by-step approach, first using the methods of other nobles to rule to make the people feel stable, and then gradually change the past traditions. For example, first plow and fertilize 100 acres of land. If it works, the area can be expanded next year. This is the safest way. But Seth didn't expect Roman to flip the table as soon as he came up. Stud was carried out without any precedent, and it would be difficult for anyone to understand. Roman is very stubborn about this matter and will not listen to anyone's advice. After dinner, Roman went back to his room to rest. Nothing happened all night. When dawn broke, Roman woke up. He held a few slices of white bread in his mouth, and after a brief breakfast, he went to the utility room, put the axe on his shoulder, and continued to the forest to the north to chop down trees. I haven't fully recovered from yesterday's fatigue, so Roman only cut down 3 large trees and 2 smaller trees this morning. Gwyle watched with concentration as Roman cut down the wood one by one. She sat on the tree trunk, holding her chin, and watched with great interest, not feeling bored at all. Collecting experience +1, Roman looked at the experience points of collection, and found that he had accumulated 20 experience points and was still 80 points away from being able to upgrade. In this case, after cutting down trees for another 4 or 5 days, he can upgrade, gathering, to level 2. Roman pays more attention to the gathering skill, which is related to quarrying and mining. The difficulty of upgrading from level 1 to level 2 is relatively low, while upgrading from level 2 to level 3 requires 380 experience points. It can be expected that more and more experience points are required, and it will take Roman dozens of days to reach level 3. It takes a long time to upgrade from level 3 to level 4, so Roman is going to improve various level 1 life skills first. The level 2, planting, skill is enough for now. Boom. 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 Another tall tree fell. Roman took a deep breath, and Gwyle next to him immediately brought up the handkerchief. Just when he was about to take a break and continue cutting down trees, there was faint noise of commotion from the Origin Manor. A male slave ran anxiously from the manor. "Master, something happened. Go and have a look." Roman returned to the manor and saw hundreds of farmers gathering downhill from a distance. Guardsmen armed with spears formed a blocking line. Aaron and Green stood in front of the guards. The 2 war knights were fully armed and stood on both sides, like 2 door gods. There were some bloodstains on the ground. and there was obviously bloodshed. Moore and a group of stewards hid in a safe location and did not dare to come forward to speak. Seth stood tall in front of the two of them. Facing a crowd that was far larger than him, the deacon was not afraid. Instead, he sternly reprimanded the crowd for their offensive behavior. Roman didn't hear what they were saying because they were too far away. When he appeared in person, the already excited crowd became even more restless, and they rushed forward together. Aaron took a step forward and protected Seth behind him. The buckler he raised was like an unshakable rock, blocking the progress of the crowd. Roman scolded, "What are you doing?" The crowd suddenly became quiet, and everyone stared at the noble lord. He stood at a high place, with long brown and black hair scattered on his shoulders, like a young lion. However, his shoulders were not too wide, but his body was strong, supporting his majesty. His expression was calm, and his red eyes were, when his eyes are focused, they are as sharp as an eagle's eyes, making people dare not look directly. When he came to him, more than a dozen old farmers stood in the front of the crowd, whispering, "Lord, we hope to divide the land." Roman raised his chin and said, "I don't allow it." The crowd behind these old farmers began to surge again. The old farmer said, "The land you let us cultivate is too little, we need more land." They clearly realized the specific scope of the land from the boundaries drawn by Roman, and Roman prohibited them from cultivating land outside that land, and the meaning was self-evident. The farmers who participated in the plowing yesterday also calmed down from the joy of seeing the heavy plow. With the farming experience of previous years, they knew that they could not feed everyone with only this piece of land. After a day of brewing, the farmers who could no longer bear it finally gathered together and launched this large-scale riot. The old farmer's voice was weak and humble, but very firm. "We need to divide the land. Only in this way can we not starve to death. Even if you raise taxes, we can agree." Roman pretended not to hear. "Did you do what you should do today? How much fertilizer did you pile today? How much land did you plow? Did you use the newly cast heavy plow of lax?" The old farmer shook his head and said, "Lord, please have mercy. We can't see the hope of survival." Roman said impatiently, "Tell me. How can I make you obey me?" Chapter 38 Calming Down. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wherever his gaze swept, everyone lowered their heads in unison, but no one backed away. They are as stubborn as stones. "Lord, you took back all the land and broke all the past agreements. We don't know how to survive. You should know that farmers can't live without the land, just like you and your knights can't live without it. Open white bread." Roman was also very stubborn. He said, "You don't need to pay land taxes in the future. You will have no worries about food and clothing from now on, because I have plenty of ways to support you. You just need to obey me. This is the only thing you have to do." The old farmer shook his head and said, "I can't believe what you said. How can you feed all of us on those 2,000 acres of land?" Roman frowned. "I can promise that no resident will starve to death this year, next year, or until the last day of my rule." "You won't believe it either." The old farmer standing at the front of the crowd thought about it repeatedly. Finally, he nodded and said, "Yes." Roman shouted sharply, "You are questioning me. You are destroying yourself. Get out now and I will forgive your rudeness. We can't leave. We know how much 1 acre of land can produce, and we also know how much 2,000 acres of land can produce. Lord, you asked the blacksmith to build a heavy plow, but it is still unknown how effective it will be. Those heavy plows cannot create the miracles of the gods. In comparison, we trust our own hands more and use our hands to feed you and feed us all, as long as you are willing to be merciful and give us a way to survive. Do you think I'm going to starve you to death? No, Lord, you definitely don't want to starve us to death. You are willing to give us wheat porridge and bread. We only need 1 meal at noon every day, so we don't need to eat all day. This is enough to show your kindness. And you even do the work yourself. Your skills in plowing are better than all of us." Those slaves also said that they have never seen a lord like you. But the total amount of food is limited, and sooner or later we will end up eating trees. The skin and the soil. The old farmer continued, "If all the food is eaten, you can leave this land at any time. Can all of us leave like you, that they have no choice? One less harvest means they will be hungry for half a year. This length of time is despairing. Even Agricultural Officer Moore couldn't lend grain to everyone, 2,000 acres of land to grow food for 2,000 people. Purely whimsical. The land alone cannot support them. The Lord, who was willing to give them wheat porridge and no clear taxes, only promised to wait until the summer harvest to distribute food to them. This means they will most likely get nothing. This is more terrifying than the 60% tax. Roman said with a cold face, "So you refuse to obey?" That the old farmer said, "Lord, we only need to divide the land, you can't trap us in those 2,000 acres of land. Even if I say that this land is enough to ensure that you will not starve to death." That the old farmer shook his head. "This is like saying that we will never have to worry about food problems in the future. I can't imagine what that scene would be like. The reason why I oppose your decision is because your promise is too unreal." Roman said, "Well, those who oppose me, please take a step forward." The old farmer was silent for a second, and then took steps. The other figures also moved, taking a step one after another. More people did not move. Behind the Lord were two knights. They were watching, praying deep in their hearts that the Lord would compromise. But Roman wouldn't compromise. He knew there would be resistance to changing traditional production models, and he had already been mentally prepared. Roman took out the big sword mixed with orichalcum from green and turned the two-handed sword, which weighed more than 10 kilograms, with one hand. The cold light of the sword blade reflected the dozens of old faces with crisscrossed ravines. They are very old, probably around 40 or 50 years old, and their sensitivity to the land far exceeds that of everyone else. They would not make any changes because they were afraid that Roman's actions would bring them into despair, so they mobilized the masses to plead with Roman to divide the land. It is extremely unlikely that 2,000 acres of land can feed everyone. It is extremely likely that we will not be able to feed everyone. The old farmer opposed this because in his opinion, this was not a matter of probability at all, but a matter of miracles. So as long as the old farmer is alive, he will stop Roman and ask Roman to give them land, even if the price of this request is their lives. Stubborn. Stupid. It can only be said that this is a choice made by a few people. They consciously did the right thing and regarded their actions as asking for help from the people. Perhaps there is still a chance that as long as one person stands up, countless people will stand up to fight against the lords who impose excessive taxes. Master's fantasy, but this simple understanding only made Roman feel ridiculous. Ignorance blinded them, and there was no one to blame. The sorrow of the times. Persuasion cannot be done. This conflict of ideas cannot be alleviated with words. Imprisonment is useless. The turmoil has subsided this time, but as long as these people are still there, in 10 days and a half, if the other idiots are incited by them again, they will only waste more working time. Roman looked at him coldly. The old farmer's body was trembling. He had been watching people's movements all his life and knew what was coming next, but he still straightened his waist, which had been stooped all his life, in front of Roman. Phew. Roman raised the sword and pierced his chest with almost no effort. The scarlet blood flowed along the blade. Then, with one sword stroke, Roman killed everyone who dared to disobey him and take a step forward. Those people didn't make any resistance. They were as docile as an old cow. At most, they screamed in pain before they died. 13 corpses splattered the land with blood. A dark-skinned young farmer squeezed out of the crowd. He hugged the old farmer who died first, his face full of grief and weeping. "What's your name?" Roman narrowed his eyes and looked at the young man in front of him. He choked, "Barlow, this is my father Matthew." He held the body that was gradually losing body temperature. He tried to persuade his father, but the latter was very firm. He claimed that someone would always stand up. Even if there was only blood in front of them, they had to make a sound for the Lord to hear. Now he succeeded, at the cost of his life. "Okay, Barlow, my one-star apostle, I will now promote you to become the agricultural steward. From now on, you must cooperate with the agricultural officer Moore to cultivate the land. You must go to the future for your father to see him in the past life. A sight I dare not imagine. As long as you obey me, support me, love me, and dedicate your humble life to me, then I will always protect you. If this year, next year, or any year after that, until the last day of my rule, I starve any one of you to death, and you can draw this sword and thrust it into my chest." Roman casually let go of his hand, and the blood-stained sword fell freely, extremely heavy, and the sword's edge sank into the grass like a broken bamboo. Chapter 39 Revolt, Nobility, Salt, Slaves. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Roman was prepared for violent resistance, violent suppression, and not stopping until he killed 100 farmers, but this was going in the worst direction. Resistance was inevitable. Suppose someone invented Jinkala, which made modern countries abandon 4/5 of arable land and only keep 1/5 of arable land, and claimed that the use of Jinkala could produce more than 10,000 per mu. But no one would believe it. The voice of opposition could turn into a huge wave. This was not a problem that could be solved by explanation. Couldn't the farmers see the preparations Roman asked them to do? The only thing they were not fools about was farming. Of course, they knew that heavy plowing would increase the yield, otherwise they would not be amazed at the effect of heavy plowing. Some fertile land can naturally produce hundreds of kilograms of crops, while some poor land can only produce 30 or 40 kilograms. They knew that Roman's approach was effective, but they were not sure how much the yield could be increased, so they needed to verify and survive. A spring plowing lasted only more than half a month. Farmers must hurry up to resist Roman and make him compromise and follow the past farming tradition. Extensive farming is much faster than intensive farming, and Roman must hurry up to let farmers farm. He has to liberate the labor force. Although this contradiction is very sharp, there is no need to fight to the death. It mainly involves future issues. In a modern country, with a population of more than 1 billion, even if only 1% of the people oppose a certain policy, there are tens of millions of people, but the population here is less than 2,000. Less than 2,000. Among them, the elderly, women, children, handicraftsmen, and guards in charge must be counted. There are only 700 to 800 real laborers who can work. The population is too small. The residents of a big country do not understand the situation of a small country with few people. The ruling methods of the two are very different. It must be admitted that among these hundreds of people, everyone opposes Roman's policy. However, at least half of them oppose it, but their opposition attitude is not strong. The people who strongly oppose it but dare not protest account for another half. The majority of people dared to protest in front of the Lord. But they were afraid of death. The question is, how many people are not afraid of death? Very few. Besides, Roman never pushed them into a desperate situation. When he faced the turmoil, he made a promise in person that no one would starve to death. Those who were worried about starving to death only needed to hear this sentence to dispel most of their resistance. Most farmers were swept up by the will of the leader and had no idea of rebellion. What is a desperate situation? When there is no food at home, in the bowl, or in the stomach, that is a desperate situation. If they don't grab food from the castle of the noble landlord, they will starve to death tomorrow. The conditions for the peasant uprising are very harsh. Most of the time, the uprising of agricultural civilization never broke out when there was food in the stomach, but when there was really no way to survive. How far are we now? They think they will starve to death in the future, so they spontaneously seek survival, which is already very far-sighted, and this is what they should do. This was at best a precautionary measure, far from a riot. Roman also forgave them generously, not caring about their gathering to cause trouble. He had already prepared himself mentally, but Roman promised that no one would starve to death, but they didn't believe it. He gave in, but the farmer didn't. So his face changed on the spot, and he shouted at them, insisting that they obey. The problem is huge. This is more serious than the turmoil itself, and it is an impact and destruction on the aristocratic system. Roman said that this thing is okay. You listen to me, I will lead you to progress. The farmer said that this thing is not okay. Sir, you listen to me, I have experience, and they don't realize the consequences of this sentence. Because the premise of this sentence is that there has been no lord in the town of Stur for decades. In the past 50 years, the agricultural officer of the Bath family has been the highest manager of the town of Stur, but more has no power of life and death, at most shouting a few words on behalf of the noble master to punish you. So, their understanding of the nobles is a bit unbalanced. Roman has not yet gained prestige and recognition in this land, and the legitimacy of all his actions comes entirely from his noble status. Otherwise, he is just an ordinary person. The leading farmer can turn around and take his people back after getting his promise. I have promised, what else do you want? He is not a person who kills to establish his authority, because Siggy Town is also short of labor, and he will not kill easily. Killing is the last resort and the worst plan. Now there are many people. If you have anything to talk to me privately, I can even make you a few more promises and promote you to become an agricultural manager, and your salary and benefits will be the same as other managers. You want treatment, I will give you treatment. You want a way to live, I will give you a way to live. If we can't reach an agreement, we can talk about it. Anyway, you must plant this land, and you can't delay the working time of those people. You have found so many people, in public. You can oppose me once, you can oppose me twice, it's also fine, but if you oppose me clearly and repeatedly, how do you want me to end it? Should I kneel down for you? He said, farmers, hurry back to the fields. I'm afraid of all of you. This class confrontation is unreasonable. They didn't understand what he meant and still insisted on the idea of master, listen to me and divide the land. That the saddest thing is that they are pure farmers. Their starting point is to live for everyone, not just themselves. They have no idea of being a scab. Roman admitted that he did a wrong thing, but the mistakes of this era are definitely not limited to this one thing. This is why he wants to strengthen the earth. He wants to establish all order, standards and models, and build such a social system with his ideas. From now on, if he says yes, it's okay. If he says no, it's okay. This is a one-time approach, just like what Roman is doing now. He has no prestige, no foundation, only aristocratic status, and he will never allow anyone to destroy it. What could have been negotiated turned into a matter of bloodshed and sacrifice. Although these laborers are precious, Roman can't cultivate thousands of acres of land by himself, and he has to rely on them. Only death can maintain the authority of the nobles. Seth will only suggest him to do things. You dare to teach me how to do things? Facts have proved that when other farmers have food at home, in their bowls, and in their stomachs, they will never give up their lives to fight Roman, even if Roman deprived them of all their land. This is the weakness of the peasant class. Unless they encountered a great famine or disaster, and dozens or hundreds of people starved to death, they would not have gathered together, rushed into the enclosure, and thrown the landlord into the pot. Most people are just living a life of ease. In this era, you can rob their property, deprive them of their land, rape their wives and daughters, and do whatever you want, as long as you don't threaten their survival basis and can give them free food. In 3 years, you can be crowned king. They won't even be sneaky, because they can't plant more land. This year's hope lies in the 2,000 acres of land. They care about the output of these lands more than Roman. The free and rich lunch every day and the promise are not false at present. When Roman can no longer provide lunch and can't fulfill his promise, the contradiction between the exploiting class and the exploited class will have an unprecedented outbreak. Everything is back on track. Roman started to cut trees non-stop. As his experience in collecting trees increased, his tree-cutting skills became more and more handy, and the time was getting shorter and shorter. It basically took only half an hour to cut down a tall tree. On the 4th day of the tree-cutting work, Roman cleared a large open space at the corner of the forest. On the same day, Seth brought a businessman to the Origin Manor. In the past, there was no lord in the town of Stur, but now there is one. Roman felt it necessary to meet these foreign merchants who came to Stur along the Bro River. This is related to the development of Stur. The businessman was probably in his early 30s, thin, wearing a dark brown robe, a mustache, and a purse hanging on his belt. Roman asked, "Are you a salt merchant?" Dakin was in a subtle mood. He did not expect that such a change would happen in Stur in a short period of time. His merchant ship arrived at the dock of Stur, and he was going to do business with the residents here as usual. Then he learned that there was a new lord here, and the lord was very domineering. He took back all the land of the residents of Sig Town, forcing them to cultivate only 2,000 acres of land, and killed all opponents. The lord here is a madman. He was about to escape when he was stopped by the guards of Sig Town. An old deacon said that the local lord wanted to see him. Then he was brought here. I am not only a salt merchant, but also wool, wine, medicinal herbs, candles, cheese and butter on my merchant ship. Dakin said truthfully without hiding anything. If things really go in the worst direction, he will probably go bankrupt directly and be burdened with huge debts, because those goods are not his own, but also the investors behind him. The only way to file a complaint with the royal court is through the insurance treaty, but considering that the local lord's surname is Liejia, the Chamber of Commerce's complaint may be delayed indefinitely or directly ignored and not filed. Roman knew nothing about Dakin's thoughts, and he knew that the grocer was very nervous, so Roman's attitude was very gentle. How much salt do you have on your ship? There are more than 500 kilograms left. What price can you sell it for? Dakin saw that Roman had no intention of embezzling the goods, otherwise he would not have to be polite to him. In this barbaric era, there is no such thing as courtesy before force. 1 kilogram of salt costs 1 copper coin. The further north you go, the more expensive it is. If you go to the northern land or Ego land, 1 kilogram of salt can be sold for at least 2 copper coins. To be precise, it should be close to 3 copper coins, and it is even possible to exchange 1 kilogram of salt for half a sheep. The northern land is a notoriously bitter and cold place, second only to Ego, the hometown of the Arctic pirates, but if you go deeper, the corresponding risks and itinerary will increase sharply. Dakin is not going to the northern land, let alone crossing the sea to Ego. He only sells it in small quantities along the Bro River, and the town of Stur is just one of the stops. Every 6 months, he passes through the town of Stur, and can sell dozens of kilograms of salt here. Although it is not much, he does not need to pay any commercial taxes. This is enough for him to take the risk. These salts are the more valuable cargo on his ship. He has spent great efforts to open up a channel for purchasing salt. The output of salt-producing areas is limited. It is impossible for all merchants to become salt merchants. Most of the sales of salt are only controlled by a certain person. In the hands of these big businessmen, he could only drink in portions, although it is expensive. As a necessity, the supply is usually in short supply in the face of huge market demand, so there is no need to worry about not being able to sell it. This humble salt purchasing channel brought him huge profits. The purchase price of 100 kilograms of salt is 2 silver coins, while the selling price is 1 gold coin, which is only cheaper than iron. Sigurdsson couldn't eat the salt, and Roman didn't plan to eat it. He just asked casually, "Where are the slaves? What's the price of the slave?" Dakin was stunned. He was a little unclear about Roman's purpose, so he had to answer, "Ordinary slaves have more than 1 silver coin, and they only have some brute strength. Some slaves with good physiques or special ones can reach 2 to 5 silver coins. The price of 1 silver coin, some slaves also have special skills, which are not exorbitant in terms of gold coins, while those slaves of poor quality only cost 8 copper coins or lower. Such slaves usually have no transportation value." Is this so? Roman closed his eyes slightly, and then said, "When can you bring the slave here? How many slaves do you need? How many can you bring?" Dakin was stunned again. "I can bring 10 or 20. Roman said, "I will give you the price of 20 gold coins. How many slaves can you bring me?" Dakin was immediately in awe. "I will bring you at least 100, no, 120 slaves. In theory, 20 gold coins can buy 200 slaves, but transportation is a troublesome thing, especially in a remote location like Siggy Town. It has to go around a long way, so there will naturally be an extra premium. A slave of 1 silver coin must at least be paid to 1.2 or 1.5 silver coins, but this is a big order, and Dakin feels that he can take it on and make a profit." Roman nodded and said, "How long will it take?" "At least a month. You know the reason. The biggest problem is transportation. This was a barbaric era, with wars all year round. Human lives were insignificant, and the price of slaves was generally low. But that doesn't mean it's everywhere, especially in the Black Iron Land. There has not been a large-scale war in decades. It is necessary to leave this land and go to other lands to purchase slaves. I will pay you 10 gold coins in advance. Whether you can get the remaining 10 gold coins depends on how well you do. From now on, your commercial tax in Siggy Town will be 1 out of 20, and this is true for all goods. No objection." Dakin nodded repeatedly and praised, "Your generous decree will definitely resound throughout the upper and lower reaches of the Bro River. Commercial taxes are also one of the sources of income for the nobles. but their attitude towards merchants determines the commercial scale of the territory, and there is no shortage of such short-sighted people in this land. Drawing 1 out of 20 is really a preferential treatment for a businessman, which means that when he sells a product worth 20 copper coins, he only needs to pay a commercial tax of 1 copper coin. Most nobles maintain a ratio of 1 in 10, and some even have an astonishing ratio of 1 in 6. Basically, there is no way for businessmen to survive. In such a place, commerce and trade will naturally not flourish. Of course, depending on the product, this tax ratio will also increase or decrease. Most nobles have an attitude towards the salt tax without exception, which is to collect taxes ruthlessly. Basically, it will not be lower than 6 draws and 1 draw, and the highest can reach the point of 3 draws and 1 draw. This means that if he sells 10 kilograms of salt and earns 1 silver coin, he has to pay the local noble 3.3 copper coins. This is only one part of the salt tax, and the purchase tariff is also an expense. As a salt merchant, I could only earn the cost price after working so hard, and most of the profit was taken away by the nobles. However, the new lord of Siggy Town was so generous that he only asked for 0.5 copper coins in salt tax, which was already extremely astonishing. Roman waved his hand and asked Seth to take Dakin to get the money. He just met Dakin once and threw out 10 gold coins, which can be said to be very sincere. Roman was not worried about Dakin taking money and not doing anything. If he wants to survive in this world, he must do things well and do them beautifully. Only nobles dared to take money and refused to do things for merchants. There has never been a case where a businessman took money and refused to do things for nobles. Moreover, he could still afford the loss of 10 gold coins. There are also merchants in Siggy Town, but the commercial foundation is weak. The buying and selling of grain is okay. This kind of large-scale slave trade cannot be grasped at all. After Dakin left, Roman took Guile and continued cutting down trees in the northern forest. Chapter 40 Level 2 Collection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Today is the 16th day since Roman came to Siggy Town. The farming plan is progressing smoothly. According to Roman's request, the 100 tons of compost had been completed long ago, but because fertilizer is a thing that can be as much as possible, Roman specially asked them to pile up an extra 20 to 30 tons of fertilizer to avoid insufficient later. Lax cast all the iron that can be used into heavy plows, and built a total of 40 heavy plows. Compared with 2,000 acres of land, it can only be said that it is barely enough. At least 500 laborers in Siggy Town are now using their strength to clean up the debris in the soil. Stones, tree roots, stumps, shrub roots, hard mud blocks, which will affect the harvest, have all been thrown away, and the soil of this field has become soft and flat, which looks like this. It is estimated that in 2 days, deep plowing will be completed and the sowing stage can be entered. They have no free time. Suppose they laboriously dug out tree roots, stumps, and stones in the center of 2,000 acres of land, put them on a bullock cart, and then walk 500 meters to throw those debris out of the cultivated land. What level of workload is this? Everyone is bound to sweat profusely. However, to cultivate the raw land into mature land, this stage must be passed. This is also the reason why Roman refused to divide the land no matter what. They have to work more than 10 hours a day to achieve this progress. Giving them 2 hours of rest time to plant other things is equivalent to failing to complete the target of 2,000 acres of land. Collection experience +1. Collection skill upgraded to level 2. Level 2 collection, 1/380. Milestone unlocked, lumberjack. Lumberjack, get 500 raw stones. After Roman cut down the 55th tree, the collection skill was upgraded. The unlocked knowledge flowed into his mind. Roman rubbed his temples and found that this knowledge was about geology, which could give him a clearer understanding of minerals and provide basic mining skills. Fortunately, it barely met his next need for collection. Guile, let's go. Roman said. The tree felling came to an end for the time being. Because Guile had nothing to do, Roman asked Guile to find a small backpack and spread the pine needle soil in the forest to the vegetable field. Each time the amount of transportation was only about 20 to 30 kilograms, and it took 100 or 200 meters to run a trip, but she did it with great pleasure. So far, the child has almost covered half of the vegetable field with pine needle soil. As Roman walked, he was thinking about whether to continue to draw apostles, 8 days of sign-in plus milestone gifts, and 80 original stones left over from the last card draw. A total of 1,380 original stones can be used for 8 card draws. Roman hopes to draw Guile, Dick, Jet and other extraordinary people out of the pool, but the problem is that even if he draws them out, he currently has no resources to train them. The extraordinary resources Roman has are not enough to train even one apostle. For example, Aaron's attack attribute is E+. To upgrade it to D, he needs to use 50 grams of refined gold, plus 100 grams of magic stone, plus 500 kilograms of magic steel, to synthesize. Experience book. Let's not talk about magic stone for now, just these 50 grams of gold need nearly 20 gold coins to smelt it, and then turn it into refined gold, through magic refining. In comparison, steel is cheaper, but that also requires finding magic stone for magic refining. Roman knows that there is a long way to go, and this matter cannot be rushed. When he returned to the Origin Manor, he saw Green standing on the grass practicing sword. His great sword was inserted by Roman in a downhill position, and now he can only use the spare sword for training. This is bad. The spare sword weighs only 2 kilograms, and both the weight and texture are not as good as his two-handed greatsword mixed with mountain copper, which is the basis of his life. Therefore, Green was in a very bad mood these days. He had only seen the Lord send equipment to his knights, but he had never seen the Lord steal the equipment of his own knights. It was also a great experience. This man was really not afraid that he would turn against him at the critical moment and stab this unjust tyrant to death with a sword. Just at this time, the unjust tyrant actually spoke to him as if nothing had happened. Green, do you want to go to a picnic with me? Green glanced at Roman. After several days of Cold War, this guy still had the nerve to talk to him. Green felt that he had never seen such a shameless person. Give me back my sword first. There were many people before, so he gave Roman face and didn't say anything. Now they are all his own people, and you still want him to keep kneeling? No way. If Roman doesn't bow his head and admit his mistakes, he will never forgive this bastard. He actually stuck his sword into the ground because of killing a few old farmers. Ah, yes, you swore, you promised, you enjoyed it. Have you ever considered my feelings? Today I threw his weapons there. Will I melt his armor and make a plow next time? Roman said with a smile, Green, my knight, you have gone astray. Green had a stern face. He looked quite romantic and unruly. Now he was serious for a rare time. If you want to tell me that a knight must have the spirit of dedication and sacrifice, then I will challenge you to a knight duel. Let you see my bravery and fearlessness. TMD, I can't stand it. For such a lord who is hated by both humans and gods, we must hit him hard. Roman waved his hand and said, No. I mean, you used your talent wrongly. You shouldn't be wielding that heavy sword, nor should you be wearing heavy armor. This is a restraint on you. Green held a gun and a stick and taunted, You helped me untie my bonds, so do I still have to say thank you? Roman smiled and said, Don't you think a light sword is more suitable for you? Green's face was expressionless. Okay, I really appreciate you letting me go into battle with light armor against a fully armored knight. The foundation of an invincible warrior knight is adequate training and nutrition, as well as sophisticated armor and weapons. The latter is the key factor affecting the winning rate. Green knows that his talent is not suitable for frontal combat, but is more suitable for using speed and agility to pull the enemy away, but there is no other way. The general trend is that if he doesn't carry a two-handed sword and don't wear heavy armor, he can only bully ordinary people at most. If converted to a transcendent of the same level, he would have no winning rate at all, unless his fighting skills are incredibly high. In this case, the sword mixed with orichalcum and the armor with trace amounts of mithril attached to the surface were basically equal to his wealth and life. Roman's operation cost him half his life. Roman patted Green on the shoulder. Don't be like this, how could I bear to let you die? You are my best friend, relative, and brother. Green didn't comment, wishing that Bang Bang would punch him twice. Roman smiled and said, How about I build better equipment for you, such as an adamantine dagger and mithril armor? Green's brows moved. An adamantine short sword is enough to cut through any style of steel armor, while mithril armor can withstand the full force slashing and charging of the warrior knight. Their value can be imagined. Any one of them can bankrupt the Baron who has inherited it for hundreds of years, but Green knew that Roman never made any mistakes, at least he would never make up such an obvious lie. Really? Green tilted his head and looked at Roman, with obvious doubt on his face. Roman hummed softly, "You want it? Then we have to see if you can satisfy me." Whenever Green hesitates for a second, it is disrespectful to the adamantine dagger and mithril armor, he shouted loudly, "Master Roman. Let me be your sword and your shield, and I will sacrifice my life for you." Roman said proudly, "Humph, then come with me to have a picnic."